Hey everybody, I'm Roy Canny.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Joey Evans.
And today we're taking a look at Deep Rock Galactic, which is actually based on a video game, which I haven't played.
I didn't know it was a video game.
I have played the first iteration, Dig Dug, but I have not played this one.
But I know this is actually, when we were playing this, the first time I played it, one of the people in our game group was like, oh my goodness, Deep Rock Galactic, I love this. And
really
they were
excited.
really excited. And like, I know it has a bunch of like the catchphrases that the dwarves say as you're running around. But in this game, you're dwarves trying to mine on an asteroid to complete different various objectives. So, space dwarves.
Space dwarves.
Anyway, I guess we'll look how the game plays. In Deep Rock Galactic, you're all playing dwarves trying to mine into asteroids. I know this is based on a video game IP, but I don't have as much information about that, so if I get anything wrong with the lore or anything like that, please give me a little bit of leeway. But also, this is a big game, so we're just gonna be doing a brief overview to give you a little bit of the flavor of how the game works. Rock and stone, brother, as we're going to basically be going in here, trying to complete different objectives. So you do get this mission book that has all sorts of different objectives in them, and they're varying difficulty. We're going to be showing off the starting mission here, which the objective is to get 5 Markite and then these alpaca blooms. And you're going in here as these different things are trying to, the different enemies are trying to take you out, and you're trying to get around the board to get what you want. But then there are all sorts of other missions in here that can be even more difficult and have different hidden tiles and things like that. On this one, you have all the tiles revealed, but you do have these different mission spots that you're trying to get to find those, basically those flower blooms. If you get to one of these spaces, you'll flip it over and you could find one or not. There are little spaces here that denote where they would be, and you're trying to find all 3 of those and get the little blue tokens here, the, I guess, Markite, or however you pronounce it. You're trying to get all 5 of those as well to complete the objective. So we'll just kind of go through how the action works. On your turn, you're going to get 3 actions, which you can do several different things. You can move, so you can just move your person 3 spaces. So you can move, and basically, it's normal movement in a game, you just move across the hexes. You can attack, which means you're going to be using one of your weapons. So at the beginning of the game, you do get a secondary weapon, you have your primary weapon, and then you'll also have a throwable item, and then a rock and stone ability. So you'll kind of have that stuff for setup. And when you do an attack, you're going to be looking at your basic weapon here. The R here is the range of the attack, and you'll have normal sort of line of sight rules, kind of going from the center of your square, trying to not cross anything. Like I wouldn't be able to attack this guy if I was doing stalactites. But then you're going to roll your dice to try to hit. So basically when you roll your dice, you're trying to get the hit icon on them, and this is an explosive weapon, so it can kind of move guys as well. So this will do 2 damage. Whenever you've knocked out something, you could continue to do damage spraying in a line, which is really good with the weapons like this character's weapon over here. You're allowed to roll 3 dice. If you've got 3 hits, you could maybe knock them all out down the line. So basically, as long as you can continue to roll line of sight, you could say, I'm going to deal the damage to this guy. This second one, I will deal to this guy. And this last one, I'll deal to that guy. So you're able to kind of spread along the damage as long as you're continuing to have line of sight. The different bad guys are going to have different hit points as well. So these little guys only have 1 hit point. Their attacks aren't going to do any damage to you. They're going to move 3, and they only have a range of 1, so they have to be right beside you to attack. We'll talk a little bit more about the bad guys later. But yeah, you're going to be moving around the board. You're also going to be able to do the pickaxe action, which will allow you to, for one, destroy the stalactites here, because they might be in your way if you want to have better line of sight. When you do that, you will roll the pickaxe die, which is a white die here, and you're basically looking for a pickaxe symbol. And if you get that, you're able to knock the die out of here. If you get rid of the stalactites, you're going to be able to roll to see if you get more of the red resource, so it'll allow you to upgrade your things, or the gold, which will also allow you to upgrade things. It's just a little bit more valuable. The red ones can allow you to get drops. The gold ones allow you to actually upgrade your weapons. So that's basically how that works. But the really cool thing about this is if you're standing along a wall which you can see there's plenty of black area here, you're allowed to roll the mining die and actually try to mine to build more dirt out as the game goes along. You can build dirt out, so there was this path here that we couldn't get across, but now I could have mined, and then I'm able to move around the hole in the ground that we couldn't actually get through. So this is a game where it's kind of very Dig Dug-ish, as you could just literally take actions to roll and continue to put out more dirt to kind of like allow you to kind of get around back behind things, which is very important because as you can see all these crystals, there's actually not any ground beneath them. So you actually have to go over to those locations, roll the die, hope to get an axe, and then be able to actually dig them out of the wall itself and then move into that space to be able to collect those gems. So that allows you to kind of be like, hey, we're gonna go back this way and go through the dirt and come over here to get these. Or you could say, I'm gonna go this way and go around and trying to collect the gems, because a lot of these gems are hidden over in the wall and you kind of have to figure out a way to get around these holes. There's also a lot of other abilities that different characters have. There's grappling hooks and things like that that you can put out to allow you to get across holes. You can also have different special abilities, like this cluster grenade you apply to each space that hits, but certain items and things like that sometimes will blow up the wall as well. So you can do all sorts of different things that can allow you to kind of get around the board and do things. The other items here are being able to use your throwable item. So like, let's see, this impact axe, you roll 2 of the blue dice, which I will mention that the red dice are explosive, the green dice are kind of like your normal bullets, the blue dice are armor piercing, and the red dice are like fire attack. And different enemies will have different resistances and things to different sorts of damage. If you see here, there's different resistances. So different guys are going to be more or less resistant. The good thing about the armor piercing ones is they aren't affected by resistances nearly as much. But you would roll those die, and it says apply the highest result to a single target. So you roll 2 dice and be like, okay, well I got 1 hit, so that would do the 1 damage to somebody as one of my actions. So you could throw an axe at somebody. The throwable items are one-time use. You can also overclock your secondary weapon. So you have a secondary weapon here that will have certain stats. I will also mention anytime you use a weapon, you will get rid of your ammo. So you have a limited number of uses for each of your weapons. If you spend gold on your turn, you could overclock this as an action and flip it over. So if you see here, there's a space here for you to put 1 gold on it, and you spend it and it would be overclocked. And then you would be able to unlock the 2 extra ammo spaces here and basically upgrade your thing. And then you have better, instead of you roll 2 and pick 1, then you would roll 2 and keep both of the attacks for damage, and it has a range of 2. So yeah, you can kind of make your weapons better as the game goes along by collecting the gold around or finding gold inside of the stalactites. Your other abilities are to resupply. So during the game, if you end up getting wounded or you end up running out of ammo, if you are able to get enough of the red resources here, you are able to, if you get 3 of them, any resources you collect will go up in your little area here, so everybody will share them because this game is fully cooperative. You can spend 3 of those and put the drop pod in any open space on the board, and then players can interact with that. So you will draw a card to see. This will have 4 of your primary weapon ammo, 5 of the secondary weapon ammo, and 3 hit points that you can basically give to one player that is adjacent to this. So you could spend an action to interact with this as well. And basically the action to do that is the exchange supplies action. So you can either exchange supplies with the drone here, or you could exchange supplies with another player. With other players, you can exchange ammo, but you can't exchange hit points. You can't do a blood transfusion right in the middle of the board as the game's going along. The other thing you can do is you can assist or revive another player. There are certain attacks that bad guys will do that will knock you down. If you're knocked down, you have to spend 2 actions to stand up. You can spend 1 action as another player to help you stand up. And then also you can play your Rock and Stone card as an action. So this one says all dwarves use the mining die, so everybody could mine at the same time. You don't want to get a blank when you do it, but you could all say Rock and Stone forever and be able to mine. These are, from what I've heard, these are all different things that kind of like happen in the video game. So I feel like this is very flavorful. If you have played the video game, you'll know a lot of the sayings and things that the characters say as they're running around trying to mine things. But basically, you're going to be running around doing all of your events. Each turn, after you're done doing your action, you go to the event phase, and then you will draw and resolve one of the event cards here. So this one is Creature Pileup. Place this card on top of the Swarm deck. When the Swarm activates, discard this card and draw 2 Swarm cards instead, placing all creatures from both cards activating and then activate them, or before activating them. So this would be placed here, and that makes that even worse. There's all sorts of things here in this deck. A lot of things can do things like, gun inheritance. So this allows you to fall. If not prone, replace your secondary weapon with a new overclocked one. So you could find an overclocked weapon and get to upgrade your gun without spending gold. That would be super awesome. So there's all sorts of things here that are not always bad, but this one does have increase the swarm threat by 1. So each time there's a whole swarm threat track down here. Each time you get to one of these swarm spaces, you're going to draw a swarm card and do what it does. And this one says, oh no, the oppressor. Place the oppressor at exit 2 facing the nearest target. The oppressor, I think, is actually the biggest miniature in the game, which I should say that the miniatures in this game look phenomenal. There's all sorts of different ones. This is the biggest baddie guy. This guy can straight up have I think he has resistance to almost everything. So he has 2 resistance to regular bullets. He has 1 resistance to armor piercing and this, but then also you ignore resistances on him if he's attacked from behind. So you have to try to figure out a way to get behind him to attack him. But also as he moves, he's just going to move straight through the wall to be able to get to people. So he'll actually be putting down ground tokens so he can actually dig through the walls just like the other players. And there's all sorts of different bad guys as well. And the models and sculpts for these are really cool. And all of that stuff is going to be in that swarm deck, which is going to happen whenever this crosses here, which is going to happen when events tell you to do that. But yeah. And then after you're done doing your event phase and a swarm, if that actually happens, then you would activate monsters. They would move to the target. If they get to you, they would end up rolling the monster dice here. They are going to basically be trying to bite you. And they have 2 symbols on them. They have the hit symbol, which is basically just going to do damage to you. So you can also see on here there shows how many dice the bad guy rolls. So he could roll 2 against you, he could roll 1 against you. The little grunts guys only roll 1. That would do 1 damage to you. You would take 1 hit point off. Each player has 5 hit points. If you have all of them done, you're knocked out. And then you also, if there is a exclamation point, depending on the bad guy, it could trigger a little special ability that they could have. Like these web spitters are going to make webs, which we'll read over here. A web spitter fires damage a sticky web projectile from afar. Those who can web a dwarf, he webs a dwarf, immobilizing them on their next turn, leaving them wide open to attacks. The web dwarf can carry out actions on their next turn, except the movement action. So basically, you can do regular actions, you just can't move on your next turn because you've been webbed up. Other ones will basically stun you, which means you're only going to get 1 action. These guys, the slashers, will actually knock you over. There's one where these guys, the pretty big sized guys, they'll do 2 damage to you if they roll the exclamation point. So all sorts of different things that can trigger if they get that exclamation point symbol, depending on the bad guy. These little grunt guys don't actually do anything on exclamation points, so it's not too bad if they end up rolling it. But yeah, you basically go back and forth until you're able to uncover the alpaca blooms and are able to get all of those. So they'd be all spread around the board. You get them all in your area up here, and you're able to dig around and get all of your crystals. Then all you have to do is get back to the base. And then once you've done that, then you all win the game. These spaces here are the spawn points that the bad guys are going to be coming out at. So they're going to be keep on coming until you either A, complete the mission, or B, they take you out. Also, you'll lose if you get to the end of the track here, so you don't want that to run out. Or if your guys end up both being knocked out at the same time. And like I said, there's tons of different missions in here, and there's lots of cool ones where you'll have a lot of tiles that will start face down, and you actually have to dig your way into them to be able to flip them up. And these are the different things that you're going to need to find for your mission as the game goes along. But yeah, that is Deep Rock Galactic. Let's tell you our thoughts. All right, so Deep Rock Galactic. This is a big, grandiose game with tons of miniatures in the game. What do you guys think about the production value and how the game kind of comes together?
It's great. I mean, the miniatures are great, and I like the artwork and everywhere on it, and all the different, I guess, the grunts and all the different monsters and things. I wish the tiles were kind of more numbered, like, or lettered,
Yeah.
A, B, because laying it out gets a bit tedious because you're like, does it match, does it not? You just have to match the shape, which is fine, but if they had just simple letters somewhere, it'd be easier.
I definitely agree with that, because several times when I was setting up the map, especially because there are tiles that lay on top of other tiles,
Right.
sometimes
Yes.
you're just like, what shape is that even? You know, so you have to be very careful when you're setting everything up, especially since for the different scenarios, things go in very particular ways.
Right, because then you have to realize that the outer shape is blue
And that's
the
also
inner
important.
ones are white.
You know, you can't just put it wherever. Like, you have to have it in the exact spot so that your dwarves can dig around.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would probably be my big production complaint is that, and I think that you read through the rules to do the first learn of the game and everything. My impression of going through the rule book after having played with you that first time is that the rules are pretty good, but they're hard for referencing things.
Gotcha.
You know, so when I went to go play it again, it had been a few weeks, and pulled it out again. I was like, okay, I just need the quick kind of summary things. Where do I spend red gems? It shows gems on the setup. It shows a picture of blue gems. So I went through the bag. I put blue gems around.
That's not quite how it works.
The mission scenario says which color gems to use. Like, it's all good. It's all there.
It's just having it in the right place, in the right order, right?
Yeah, and I was looking for that quick reference guide.
Yeah, if they had a quick reference guide, that would help out a lot. Where you could be like, oh, well, what's the mark? Right? What's this item? What's, like, a lot of the dwarves, you have to go to the back and look at that specific character to figure out what their specific ability does. You know, so that stuff's a little bit finicky.
Even the fact that, I hate to harp on, but I will every time because it's a simple fix. Player aids, man, come on. You know, it's on the back of the rule book. It's a pretty simple game, which really is to its massive benefit because it's really. But the fact
I agree.
that
A player aid saying how each of the actions work, how each of the abilities for the dwarves would be really, really beneficial.
Just Xerox, because it's on the back of the rule book. Just, you know what, print that 4 times, you know, and have it out so at least you have some sort of guide for a new person jumping in. And it's simple, man. Especially when you put these minis in that look incredible. To print 4 extra pieces, how hard it is.
I will say that I really do enjoy the miniatures for this game.
Oh,
they are
they're
really, really nice. They even have miniatures for like the drop pod and things like that. And the big creature thing or the big robotic thing that holds the gems in it as well is really cool looking. And then all the dwarves look great. Double layer boards and everything is a lot of fun too. The boards are really nice. They have slots for your cards, slots for your ammo, slots for your hit points. I think the production value on that side is fantastic.
And, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, so for me, like big miniatures and stuff, I've never been a person to be wowed by that. I never love a game because look how deep this box is. That's usually for me a turn off.
Deterrent,
But there's a right way to do it, and that is where you have these things that you're talking about. Pretty sensible trays, good player board layout and everything, dual all that stuff. Even the way that the miniatures are made benefits gameplay. Because the board state is more readable and visible, right? I don't love it when there's so many minis out there that you can't tell what's going on or things block views of other things. I really like that you can tell exactly where that big resupply pod is. Yeah, it's a huge big mini. That actually has a really great gameplay purpose. So I think that the way that this is done is both awesome looking, but very practical.
And they don't really overflow their space either.
Right.
You know, so they stay in. And now as far as like the characters, I love how asymmetric all these guys are.
Oh, for sure.
The game is different depending on who you have.
And it's a cooperative game, so it's cool to have people that have different strengths and weaknesses sort of a little bit. So it's like, and they all have. Most of the dwarves have very different like combat dice types, you know? It's like this guy's shooting fire, this guy's shooting bullets, this guy's shooting, and that's kind of interesting too with the monsters having different weaknesses and things like that as well.
Which you would balance that. Then also some can swing over the grappling over, one can drill through easier. That type of stuff is really good.
That's one of the mechanics I really want to highlight in this game is the basically the mining mechanic. Your dwarves, you're mining asteroids, and the fact that in this game you can literally roll a dice to dig around different areas, and you always have to dig into the walls to find different gems as part of the scenario. Like this whole digging aspect and pulling things out, and you can just kind of like dug your way around outside the map, open up new tiles and new sectors by digging around. I love that part of the game.
It is probably my favorite part of this because I like dungeon crawls, but dungeon crawls, they always give you a path.
You're just
in,
going on the tiles and going exactly where they need you to go.
So you're going where the designer wants you to go. Here you're like, you know what? I'm going to dig my way around and make a new one, new tunnel. And it changes the end of the game too.
Right.
Because if you get to the end, all of a sudden you have multiple exits. If one is clogged, you have another place to go. I really like that. That's my big takeaway from this.
When there's a couple of, like a big swarm of baddies on one side, and you're like, you know what? It's actually easier if we just kind of keep digging all around.
Especially when they have the character that can like run one space into the rock and the rock just disappears. He just carves his path, his own path as he's walking through, which is so cool. Just think about the doors being like, drill hands. Like if you want to play a game where you feel like dwarves, they're just doing big, mean, nasty things, like that's what this game is. It's like blowing up bugs and like mining for gems.
And it's so thematic in the fact that if you do decide to take that back way out, the back door, you can have the flamethrower just lay down just fire, to block fire. If they go through, they're going to take damage. Man, stuff like that, that's really great in this.
Very thematic. I can't speak to whether this is like the video game.
Right.
But my impression walking away from this is very thematic, fun moments. The event cards. Last time we played, there are a couple, like most of the event cards are add some grunts. Bad guys come out, this, that. And all of a sudden there's one that says no event now, double the big bad swarm card that comes out next. And you're like,
I feel like I always get that card, and then when the swarm finally comes up, it's like, no!
It's
so many bad guys!
Yeah. Or just other things that have like choices or potential benefits. You can fall down but refill all of your weapons.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I fell on a pile of ammo. Oh no!
That's how it is. You take a damage, but you reload your gun. And it's just, and then there's one that stalactite fell, and it was like, that was close. And it falls next to you, but also would hit a monster if it was there.
That's cool. I also really like the fact that you can exchange ammo and exchange like your items and things like that. And then you can also call that drop pod when you get enough of the resources to be able to drop it down. You drop it down, and then everybody's running over and pulling ammo out of it, pulling like med packs out of it.
Yeah.
And it just adds to that cooperation feel. It's like, when do we pull the drop pod? Do we pull it now? Where do we put it? If we put it here, then everybody can get to it. It just adds to that like cooperation in the game.
And I also like how at the beginning, you really look like, I don't think there's any way we're going to survive this. But as you upgrade your weapons, and by flipping them, overclocking them, or getting the upgrades, you're like, now we're rolling. It feels like this is doable, because I thought we were going to die the last game 3 or 4 times. I'm like, well, this was good. This was fun.
Well, the game gives you a grenade at the beginning, so we're getting swarmed in, we're getting kind of blocked in, and you're like, now's my time. I love when games give you a lot.
Those moments.
This game has restrictions, and it has ammo that you're watching it kind of tick down, but it gives you a lot. And I want to do that. I want to feel like a big smashy dwarf crushing all these bugs. And then the big bug comes out, and you're like, oh.
And they're like, we have to strategize how to actually take this thing out, or we need to run. But it crushes walls. So it's like, run!
You get both choices. It has strategy for being what I mean, trademark, like big dumb game. Is this kind of a big dumb game? Sure, but in all the best ways where you have choices besides, do I move forward and shoot? Yeah, I do that. You can tunnel, we can cooperate, we understand how the big baddie's going to behave. They're susceptible on the rear side, so I'm going to run out here, draw its attention, and you guys just kind of blast it from the back. Like, there's real choices to be made.
So I'll go ahead and start with my final thoughts here.
Okay.
Normally, like zombie-side style games or dungeon crawl style games where it's cooperative, you're going and smashing stuff, a lot of those I feel are slightly hollow sometimes because you don't have meaningful choices. This one, the aspect of being able to dig and make weird paths around the map, having lots of options, being able to build up resources and upgrade your weapons, being able to have those throwable weapons is really enjoyable for me. I'm giving this an 8. I really enjoy it. I think it's a blast to play. If you're into that kind of game at all, you'll definitely enjoy it. It is definitely a big dumb game, but it is a fun, like cooperative game, and it has just this beautiful aesthetic and this crazy romp. If you want a game that's like a crazy blow things up cooperative game, I would say check out Deep Rock Galactic.
It's interesting. I'm also coming in at an 8. After my first play, I was like, I'm curious, but going through some of the later missions where tiles come face down and you flip them over, and even that has some strategic choice behind it. Are we in a position to explore that next tile, because in a lot of games I'm just like, yeah, go, go, go. Oh, wait. Oh, let's think about this. Like, there's great moments. I love how upgraded you can get for the fact that there's not too many rules. I mentioned in the beginning, a small negative for me was that rule book as a reference guide. And I think it's a little bit hard to look up some of that stuff, but there's not that much going on that still leads to good decisions. The opposite of this for me is I was never wild about Mice and Mystics.
Right.
Because that game for me had a ton of rules, but smaller decision space. This goes the other way around. That's huge.
Yeah.
So that's an 8 for me. I really like it.
I agree too. I was going to go up to 8.5, but I'm actually at an 8 on this.
I figured you would be the highest of this because this is your style of game.
It is, but I will tell you the reason it is lower is because the rule book. You know, I think once you're 4 or 5 games into it, you know it. But honestly, it is a barrier when you're learning it to not have those play rates and not have that rule book that's very planned out well, so you can kind of look through the little things, because there aren't a lot of. It's not rules heavy, which is to its huge benefit. But I just wish it had a bit more, an easier way to get in. But I love this game. Yeah, so I'm coming in at an 8 as well, because it is fun. The digging around is just. It's just a blast, And like you said, you have the decisions, the rules are here, which is great. Every game is different. Every mission can be different depending on which way you want to dig. Yeah, so I like it. It's an 8 for me.
Yeah, I definitely think it's one that people should check out. So that has been Deep Rock Galactic. I am a dwarf and I'm digging a hole.
Diggy, diggy, hole. Diggy, diggy, hole.
I don't sing.